Hello everyone. Today we will talk about metals and non-metals. Our nature has lots of elements, right? And we divided these elements into metals and non-metals. Clear? So this is the basic category of the division of these elements, right? And today we will talk about only metals and non-metals. Clear? So first of all, what is the difference between both the terms? So let's see how much you can know about the metals and the non-metals by the differences between both. Okay. So let's see what can be the differences between both the terms. Okay, so first of all we have metals. If they are mostly hard and shiny in appearance, and if we talk about the non-metals, they are not much so hard and they are dull in the appearance. So you know what students, when these metals and non-metals, they just combine to form a new substance, and that is known as metalloid. So what is the spelling when both these combined? Metalloids. Clear? So this is the basic difference between both the terms, but exceptions are everywhere. So they have exceptions also. For example, if we talk about the mercury, mercury is in liquid form, but it's a metal, right? And if we talk about the non-metal, so diamond is also non-metal, but it's a hard in nature, right? And now let's see what the electronic configuration about these non-metals and metals distinguish both the terms. So let's see. Okay, so what the electronic configuration says about all these three. So if we talk about the metals, when the valence electron is in the number of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2 and 3, then the element is known as metal. And if we talk about the non-metals, then if the electronic configuration is 5, 6, 7, then it is said to be non-metal. And among all the 8 valence electrons, what we have left? 4 and 8. So if 4 and 8, your configuration, your electronic configuration comes, that means that particular element is known to be metalloid. So what can be the examples for these? First of all, metals like silver, tin. So these can be the examples for metals. And if we talk about the non-metals, then sulfur and phosphorus. Okay, and if we talk about the metalloids, what can be the metalloids in the nature? Like silicon, antimony. So these are called metalloids. Clear? So have you cleared the concept? If the valence electrons are in number of 1, 2, 3, then it can be the examples for metals. And if the valence electrons we have in the number of 5, 6, 7, then it is said to be non-metals. And if the 4 and 8 are there, that means they are known as metalloids. Okay. So I'm gonna take some examples to make this concept more clear. So first of all, we talk about the metals. The first one we are taking here, sodium. Okay, so we know very well sodium is a metal. So if we talk about the electron configuration of sodium, so what can be it? 8 and and here only one electron is in the valence shell, so this is lead to the metal. Clear? And if we talk about the non-metal, so here I am taking nitrogen, nitrogen and its atomic number is 7, and 2 and 5 its electronic configuration, right? And 5 electrons are in the valence shell, so 5 is the number of electronic configuration which leads to make a non-metals. And if we talk about the metalloids, so here silicon I'm taking for an example, its atomic number is 14, clear? So 2, 8 and 4. So if the 4 is there, that means the particular element is known to be metalloid, clear? So this is the concept of metals, non-metals and metalloids. So metals, that means they are shiny in nature, and even the luster is also present in these kind of elements. But if we talk about the non-metals, they are non-lustrous elements in the nature. And metalloids, these are the combination of both these metals and non-metals, then they are lead to be metalloids. Okay. And if we talk about the definitions according to the electronic configuration of these, then what can be the definitions for this? So metals, these are the elements which form positive ions by losing electrons. So here electrons are given out, okay? And if we talk about the non-metals, so these are the elements that form negative ions by gaining electrons, clear? And metalloids, they are normally known as the elements having 4 valence electrons in the shell, okay? So now move to our next topic, that is occurrence of metals. That means from where we can get metals. So first of all we have ores. So what are ores? So basically these are the rocks having metallic minerals in them, and we just extract these minerals from these rocks, okay, for our purposes. And the next one we have, so it is pronounced as gangue, okay? So what is gangue? When two minerals are combined with each other and with having some impurities, then these are known as gangue, okay? And the next one we have noble metals such as gold, silver. So these are the metals that are very expensive but not very reactive, okay? And these are known as noble metals, clear? And you know what? When the important minerals are extracted from these, then what the process is known as? That is known as metallurgy. What is called metallurgy? Okay, so metallurgy is just a extraction of the important minerals from these all three, like ores, gangue and noble metals, okay? The next topic we have occurrence of non-metals and metals, okay? So students, we have these metals and so students, we have these non-metals and metalloids. So the first one we have hydrogen, and this is the most abundant element in our nature, okay? And approximately 11% of its weight from water, clear? And it is in combined state, that means it does not lie freely in the nature, okay? And the next one we have nitrogen. So approximately 76% of nitrogen is in the air present, okay? It reacts with oxygen in the atmosphere, then it forms these sodium nitrate and potassium nitrate. So these kind of nitrates it forms if it reacts with oxygen. And the another one we have oxygen. So oxygen's approximately 23% is in the air, okay? And 89% of its mass form water, clear? So when this oxygen and hydrogen, they just combined with each other and they form water, that is hydrogen and oxygen, clear? And the next one we have carbon. So carbon is also very frequently found element, right? And approximately it is present 60 to 90% in the coals and the coal products, right? And the next one we have silicon, and this is the second most abundant element in Earth's crust, right? And it is it is not, and it's also in combined form, and when it reacts with oxygen it gives SiO3, that means silica, and even the silicates also, right? And the next one we have sulfur. It lies freely in the nature, okay? And it can be found on Earth's crust and even on the rocks, okay? In the form of some sulfates and sulfides as metal, and it gives hydrogen sulfide, right? And so these were the non-metals and metalloids and the occurrence of these, right? So students, next we have physical properties of metals and non-metals. So what are the physical properties of these? How can you say that the particular element is metal or non-metal or even the metalloid? Okay. So next we have physical state. So we know very well that physical state exists in three states, that are solid, liquid and gas, right? And here we are talking about the difference between the physical states of non-metals and non-metals. So first of all, in metals, if we talk about the metals, then they are mostly solid in nature, okay, but except the mercury. So mercury is in liquid state at room temperature, right? And that we use in the thermometers also, right? And in the other hand, the non-metals, so they can be in all the three states, okay, solids, liquid and gas, okay. And the next we have luster. What is luster? So basically luster means shining. So mostly metals are shiny in nature, so they are lustrous, right? And the non-metals, they are mostly dull in their texture, for except the graphite. So graphite is in lustrous nature, clear? And the next one we have hardness and strength. So the mostly all the metals are hard and strong except sodium and potassium. So these are the two elements which are not hard as much the other metals, okay. So non-metals are not hard and strong, but if we talk about the diamond, so it is hard in nature, clear? And the next one we have malleability and ductility. So first of all, what are these terms? So malleability, when a specific element is beaten and flattened, then it is used to make some sheets of that specific element, and that process is known as malleability. And ductility is the process in which we just stretch out the particular element to form long thin wires, okay. So this is ductility and malleability. So mostly metals, they are malleable and ductile, but in the case of non-metals, these are not malleable and ductile, they are brittle. That means they can break easily. And here we are continuing with our previous topic. So here the difference between metals and non-metals, and what different conductivity do they both have. So first of all, if we talk about the metals, so conductivity, that means where conduction occurs. So metals are conductive in nature, so they are good conductor of electricity, but in case of non-metals, they are bad conductor of electricity. But exceptions are everywhere, we know very well, okay. And graphite is the example of non-metal which conducts electricity, right? So if I'm giving some examples like aluminium, coal, silver, or this graphite. So among all, what do you think can conduct electricity or conduct heat? So if we talk about the aluminium, it's a metal, right? And it conducts electricity and heat also. But if we talk about the coal, it's non-metal and it does not conduct any heat and electricity. In the another case, graphite, we know very well that graphite is non-metal, still it conducts heat and electricity, clear? And silver is the best metal that can conduct electricity, right? So this is what about the conductivity. The next one we have sonorous. So what is sonorous? When two things collide with each other, okay, and they produce a sound, okay, and that is known as sonorous. So most of the metals, they are sonorous in nature, they produce sound after colliding with another metal, right? But if we talk about the non-metals, they are not sonorous in nature, clear? So they do not produce any sound, okay. So they produce sound. That means they are sonorous in nature and they don't produce what? Sound. Clear? Next difference we have melting and boiling point. So metals, they have high melting and boiling point, but the non-metals, they have low boiling and melting point except graphite and diamond. So exceptions are there, graphite and diamond. So these are the two non-metals, they have high melting and boiling point. Clear? So now we have specific gravity. That means how this gravity is different in metals and non-metals. So first of all, what is specific gravity? It is density of object divided by the density of water. That means just suppose it's here water and it's an object. Clear? So the area which is in the water, okay, this submerged area, this is known as the specific gravity of an object. Clear? So metals have high specific gravity than the non-metals. Non-metals, they do not have specific gravity. They have very low specific gravity. Clear? And if we talk about the metals, iron, its specific gravity is 7.8, and if we talk about the copper, so its specific gravity is 8.7. And one more thing, there is no any SI unit of specific gravity. So this is specific gravity which is different in metals and non-metals. Clear? So in the metals, exceptions are there. If we talk about the potassium and sodium, so they have very low specific gravity, even less than 1. Clear? So what is specific gravity? It is the density of an object divided by the density of, yes, water. Clear? So all the physical properties we learnt before, and now we have some chemical properties. Okay, so what is the difference according to the chemical properties between both? Okay, first of all, we have reaction with oxygen. So what happens if metals and non-metals, they react with oxygen? What kind of a solution do they give? So first of all, metals. So here I'm taking an example of magnesium. Clear? So magnesium is a metal, and when it reacts with oxygen, so magnesium plus oxygen. Clear? So what does this give? It gives 2MgO. That means magnesium oxide. Clear? And when this solution is put on the litmus papers, then what happens? The litmus paper turns into blue. Okay, so litmus turns into blue. So this color, this blue color indicates that the solution is in basic nature. Okay, so when metals react with oxygen, they give basic oxides. Okay, so here oxides, so they give basic oxides. Clear? And if we talk about non-metals, so here sulfur I'm taking for an example. Clear? So when sulfur, it reacts with oxygen, it gives SO2, that means sulfur dioxide. When this tests on litmus paper, then litmus turns into red, and this red color indicates the acidic solution. Clear? So when non-metals react with oxygen, they give acidic oxides. So this is the chemical property of metals and non-metals when they react with oxygen. So metals, they give basic oxides, and non-metals, they mostly give acidic oxides. Okay. And the next one we have reaction with water. First of all, here normal water. So in normal water, I am taking example of sodium. Okay, when sodium reacts with water, it gives sodium hydroxide. Clear? And hydrogen, which is just heat. Okay, so they just this sodium, it vigorously reacts with water, and even potassium, calcium, copper, and gold. So these are the also examples that react with normal water to give heat. Clear? And next we have hot or steam. When like magnesium, it reacts with water, it gives magnesium oxide. Clear? And even with the heat. And iron reacts with hot or steam strongly. Okay, so metals are highly reactive with water, but if we talk about the non-metals, they do not react with water. Got it? So students, next we have reaction with acid. So for this we just perform an activity. Okay, so what do you need to do? So take some metals and non-metals. Clear? So for example, magnesium, sodium, or also copper wire, charcoal, sulfur powder. So these are the things that means metals and non-metals you can take for the experiment. And what you need to do, so now put these metals and non-metals in the different test tube and add something 5 ml of HCl or sulfuric acid. Okay, so first of all we will do with the HCl, that means hydrochloric acid. Okay, so what happens then when sodium reacts? So among all the non-metals and metals, so these are the things that would react with these solutions. Okay, and first of all we have sodium, and sodium reacts with hydrochloric acid, it gives sodium chloride, right, and release hydrogen. Clear? When metals react with acids, they give salt with some liberating hydrogen. Okay, so next we have iron is added in the HCl, then it gives ferrous chloride with some hydrogen. Next, aluminium, it reacts with hydrochloric acid, then it gives aluminium chloride. Okay, and releases hydrogen. So among all, only magnesium reacts with sulfuric acid, it is dilute sulfuric acid. Okay, and when it reacts with it, it gives magnesium sulfate, some hydrogen. Okay, so these are the metals that react with the acid. And if we talk about the non-metals do not react with acids. Okay, they react with bases. So the next one we have reaction with bases. So here NaOH base we are taking. Okay, and most of the non-metals, their reaction with sodium hydroxide is very complex. Okay, and if we move to the metals, then aluminium, zinc, and lead. So these are the metals that react with this base. So let's see here. First aluminium's example I'm taking. Okay, so here 2 aluminium plus 2 NaOH we are taking. What happens when both reacts with each other? So okay, so when these reacts with each other, then what do they give? This is sodium aluminate. Okay, and this hydrogen also releases out by the process. So this reaction shows that the heat is released out during this process, and this process is exothermic in nature. Clear? So what is displacement reaction? So to understand this reaction, first of all we need to know about the reactivity series. Reactivity series. What is reactivity series? It is the series of metal, okay, according to the reactivity, that means from maximum to the minimum. Clear? For example, potassium to gold. Potassium, it is highly reactive element in the metals, and gold is least reactive in the nature. Okay, so this series from maximum to minimum, this series is known as reactivity series. Clear? And now what is displacement reaction? So when two metals are replaced by each other, but the condition is the metal which you are going to replace by the previous one, it should be below the series of that. Okay, so it should be below the reactivity series. Clear? And it couldn't be above the element which is present in the reactivity series. Clear? So let's take an example. Here iron is there, and here I am taking CuSO4, that means copper sulfate. So here is the reaction. So this copper will be replaced by this. Okay, and this iron is more reactive than copper. Clear? So what would be your product? Plus copper. So this copper is out in this process. Clear? So this is called displacement reaction. Clear? So students, next we have uses of some metals. So first of all we have uses of iron. So if we talk about iron, so the first one we have pig iron is a hard and brittle form of iron with a high carbon content, and it is used in making pipes, sinks, and storage tanks also, railings also, cylinders, etc. So the process is known as casting. Clear? Next we have articles such as nails, bolts, chains, wires, nets, agricultural tools, etc. are also made by the iron. Okay, and for making these we need to hammer these all the things, right? And the next one we have steel. So steel contains also 0.5 to 1.5% of carbon, and this carbon is used taken from the iron. Okay, and it is used in the construction of buildings, ships, bridges, and railway lines, etc. And even stainless steels we have, and this we use for making our utensils, knives, etc. Clear? Move to other metal, that is copper. So copper is mostly used as electric wires, because we know very well that copper is a metal and it is good conductor of electricity. So hence it is used as making electric wires. Okay, and even copper coils are used in several electrical appliances. Got it? And it is also used to make heating utensils, car radiators, and even the calorimeters also. And it forms useful alloys. So alloys we will discuss in the next one. Okay, so till that you need to know that it is used for forming alloys. Clear? So the next one we have uses of aluminium. So where do we use aluminium? It is increasingly replacing by copper wires. Copper as an electric conductor, especially in overhead cables. So aluminium is also a good conductor of electricity, right? And it is used for making utensils also. Cooking utensils also are made from this. And next we have aluminium foil is used for packing food. Next we have aluminium powder is used as paint to prevent rusting of iron. So it is used for painting the things, iron objects mostly. Okay, and to prevent, we use this aluminium foil, and it reduces the case of rusting. And next we have aluminium alloys are light and strong, and they are used to make bodies and engine parts of the aircrafts and car. Okay, so aluminium is used for making bodies of aircrafts and cars. Next we have uses of zinc. Zinc is used in dry cells, and it is used in coating iron sheets to prevent the rusting of iron, and this process is known as galvanizing of iron. So galvanization is a process in which we just use zinc for coating iron objects to prevent this from rusting of iron. And last one we have, it is used in the preparation of useful alloys such as brass, bronze and German silver. So these are also made from the zinc. Okay, so here other metals are also there. First of all we have lead. So it is mostly used as a electrode in the automobile batteries. Okay, and next we have steel or iron. So steel, it uses as plates with a coating of tin are used for making food containers. So it is used as in for making of food containers. Okay, and this is also used to make alloys such as solder and bronze. Next one we have chromium. So chromium electroplated on iron gives it a corrosion resistance shining finish. For example, in handles of bicycle or car bumpers, etc. So these are coated with the chromium. Clear? Next we have nickel. It is electroplated on other metals to give them a corrosion resistance finish. It is also used to make some alloys. So chromium and nickel both are used for making other metals for resisting the corrosion effect. And next we have titanium. So it is light and strong corrosion resistance metal, and it is used for making bodies of aircrafts. Next we have mercury. So mercury being a liquid at room temperature, and we use in thermometers and barometers, right? So whenever you move to hospital and a doctor puts a thermometer in your mouth, and the mercury, it raises with the temperature. Okay, so it is liquid at room temperature. So here are some uses of common non-metals and metalloids. So first of all we have silicon. So silicon, it is extensively used in the electronic and the computer industries to make devices such as transistors, microchips and solar cell. Okay, and next it is used to manufacture silicons, which are used for making waterproof clothes, greases and polishes, and insulating materials for electrical appliances. The next one is uses of sulfur. So sulfur is used in the manufacture of sulfuric acid, which is used in several industrial processes. And the next is, it is used in the vulcanization of rubber, which makes rubber hard enough to be used in tires. So why the tires are hard in nature? Because of the sulfurs. Okay, and next we have, it is used in the skin ointment because of its fungicidal properties. So sulfur is used in the skin ointments because it just heals the fungal infections. And next we have, being an insecticide and fungicide, it is used to spray fruit trees against pests and diseases. So the next we have uses of phosphorus. So phosphorus is used in making matchbox and in the fireworks industries because it is bit reactive, and it is used in the manufacture of phosphate fertilizers also. So it acts as a chemical, and it is used in the fertilizers also. Next we have uses of carbon. So carbon as a graphite is used in making the lead of pencils, electrodes in dry cells and electric arcs, and as a lubricant. Next we have carbon as diamond is used in jewelry and in making cutting tools. So like glass tools is cut by this diamond, and this diamond is a form of carbon. So the next we have carbon as charcoal is used in filters to purify air and water, and even this charcoal is used for the cosmetic industries also. And the next one we have carbon as coal is used as a fuel. So if we talk about the natural fuel, so carbon is also used as a fuel. Next we have uses of hydrogen. So hydrogen is used for the manufacture of ammonia gas, which is used to manufacture fertilizers such as urea and ammonium sulfate. So hydrogen is used in the manufacturing of ammonia also. Next we have, it is used in the extraction of metals such as copper, lead and tin. So it is also used as in the process of extraction, which is metallurgy. And next we have oxyhydrogen flame obtained by burning hydrogen and oxygen is used for cutting and welding metals. So it used in welding of the metals also, such as the iron. And next we have hydrogen is considered to be an non-polluting fuel of the future. Considerable amount of research is being carried out to use it efficiently as a fuel. So it is also known as non-polluting fuel, and it can be used in the future for making fuel. So first of all, what are noble metals like gold, silver? So these are called noble metals because they are not reactive in nature. Okay, and here are some uses of this. So first of all, making of ornaments. So these noble metals are used in the making of ornaments. Okay, next is electroplating. So there are some noble metals that are used in the electroplating of the other metals, and even some are the metals that are used in the making of coins also, for example gold and silver. Okay, so this is what about the uses of noble metals. Now let's understand about the corrosion and rusting of the iron. Corrosion is a process in which any substance or material is eaten by that exposure of air and the other chemicals. Okay, so this is corrosion. So how can you write its definition? Like process in which materials or even metals also you can write are eaten by. Okay, and what are the reason by which the metals or other the materials can be eaten by? So like exposure of air and chemicals. So we have different substances that can be eaten by the exposure of air. So for example, even your skin, metals and some other substances. Yes, your skin can be corroded by the when it comes in the contact of air. Okay, so this is corrosion. Okay, and the next one we have rusting of iron. So we believe that both the terms are equal, both the terms are same, but no, there are some difference also. Like corrosion can occur on the materials like wood, other metals and the skin. But if we talk about the rusting, it occurs only and only iron or steel. So these are the two metals that can be rusted by the when it comes in contact of air and moisture. Okay, so this is rusting. So what is rusting? When steel and iron come in contact with air and moisture. Okay, and rusting is a dark orange colored new formation of substance that form on the steel and iron metals. Okay. Now what are the things that lead to the corrosion or rusting of iron? So first of all we talk about the rusting of iron. So here are three test tubes. Okay, so let's see what are the required things for rusting of iron. Okay, so in the first test tube, this is A, B and C. So if we talk about the case A, so what are the things? Calcium chloride is present in it. Okay, we just put some calcium chloride into it, and afterwards, so here we have added a cotton wool, and above the cotton wool we have a iron nail. Okay, so in this case we have calcium chloride with having a cotton wool, and afterwards a nail into it, and afterwards then we plug it with the help of a cork. Okay, so this is all about the test tube A. Next, in the test tube B, we have some distilled water, okay, and an iron nail, and afterwards a coating is there of wax. That means here air would not go down, okay, and afterwards we attach the cork over there. And in the test tube C, here nail is there, water is there, and no any barrier is present in that, okay, and then we stuffed it with a cord. So among all these three cases, what do you think that in which case iron gets its rusting? Iron nail gets its rusting, okay. So in this case, air is absent and even water. Okay, so moisture and water both are absent in this case, and in the next one we have a coating of wax that is a barrier to reach the air down till up till the nail. Okay, and in the third case we have water as well as air. Okay, so here moisture and water, moisture and air, both the things are present. So this is why this iron nail will get its rusting. Okay, and in both the cases they will not get rusting of iron. Clear? So this is all about the this is all about the conditions that iron requires for its rusting, like moisture and water. So next we have some prevention of corrosion. That means how can you make your iron objects or other the materials safe from the corrosion. Okay, so the first one we have painting or applying oil. So if you paint the iron objects or other metals, that means it cannot be it cannot get contacted with the air and some moisture, so that this can be safe from the corrosion. Next we have covering of another metal. That means when we add another metal on the down one, okay, that means, so for this process we have different these methods by which we can make two copies of the metals. So first one we have galvanizing. So in galvanizing we just coat the metal with zinc. Okay, so in galvanizing, zinc which is in molten state, okay, so this liquid is just is to be put on the metal for getting corroded. And the next one we have electroplating. So electroplating is a process in which we just make the layers of some metal to cover up the another one that we need to save. Next we have anodizing of aluminium. So what is anodizing of aluminium? So you know aluminium is also a metal and it also can get corroded. But the thing is, when it get contacted with the air, it makes iron oxide. Okay, for example, here we have aluminium and then it reacts with oxygen, then it forms aluminium oxide. Okay, and this aluminium oxide, it resists the formation of corrosion. Okay, so this is anodizing of aluminium and this layer is made by itself. Okay, and the next one we have alloying. So alloying, that means when two different metals combine to form a new metal, new alloy, that is the process of alloying, and it resists the contact of the air and moisture in that kind of new substance. For example, steel is an alloy which can be get from the different particles of lead, iron and chromium. Okay, so this is all about the prevention of corrosion. So next our topic is alloy. So what is alloy? So let's see. Next we have alloy. So it is the last topic of our chapter. Okay, so what is alloy? It is a homogeneous mixture of two or more metals or non-metals. Okay, so two combinations can be formed, like metal and metal. So here two different metals we have, and metal and non-metals. Okay, so the new substance that is formed by the metal and metal, that is also an alloy, and if metal and non-metal combine, then it also form an alloy. Okay, so this is alloy when it is a homogeneous mixture, when two or more metals can be added, and even or the non-metals. Okay. Next we have uses of alloy, that means where we use these alloys. So first of all, to increase hardness of metals. For example, we know very well that non-metals are not so hard. Okay, and when we add metal and non-metals together, that means it forms a hard alloy. Clear? And next we have to make metals more resistant to attack by the chemicals and atmospheric corrosion. Okay, so chemicals or atmospheric corrosion can also be treated by if we add these if we add metals and non-metals. Okay, and next we have to change the properties of metals. For example, if you want to make your metal soft, okay, then the next formation of new substance, that means when you add metals and non-metals together and you just increase the amount of non-metal, that means your metal can be changed its property, right? Like it can be softer than the before. Clear? So these are the uses of these alloys. Okay, and here our chapter completes.